Something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and I've spent a lot of my life focused on, is the creative process. So, this YouTube channel, this podcast, this coaching platform, all of this is a result of me just showing up and being creative. And then, previous to this project, my professional work revolved around me supporting other people who are going through their own version of the creative process. So, for example, somebody might come to me, probably a heart centered, intuitive, gifted person with big dreams, and they might say, Lauren, I have this vision for my art, and I would like you to help me give birth to that next version of whatever it is that I'm working on. And so, over the past few years, as I've worked with all sorts of different and wonderful people, and they're all going through this birthing process. And then also, as I've been going through the process myself, I've started to perceive my role or my purpose in life as a sort of creative midwife. Creativity meaning the abstract, non physical inspiration of the soul, which flows through the body and manifests as some sort of tangible form. It doesn't really matter what that form is. So it could be a book or a business or a dance or a smile or an outfit or a transition. The reoccurring theme for me and my work is, like I said, just helping to facilitate this creative process. And so, if I were to describe this channel from within that context, I would say that all of this content is here to support you along your personal creative process. And even though we spend a lot of time talking about gender, because that's sort of like a unifying factor for all of us, I just want to make it clear that really what we're focused on here is creativity, right? Or it could also be like the emergence of radical authenticity or the heartfelt expression of your truth or the unrestricted flow of your love and passion. And so when you say to me, Lauren, I want to explore gender, or I want to transition, or I want to come out, really what I hear is that you want to give birth to a more vibrant, creative, balanced, and aligned version of yourself. And whether that next version of you requires like big dramatic changes or more subtle ones, the bottom line, according to me, is that you are evolving into a version of yourself that you never been before. And so, as far as I can tell, the creative process, this is simply the path that you walk in order to get from where you are to wherever you're going. And so, if your gestation slash birthing process is anything like mine has been, then at some point along the way, you're probably going to encounter a few really intense, high pressure moments where it's kind of like you're teetering on the brink of change and you're experiencing a sort of buildup of pressure inside of yourself. And it's like, on one hand, your desire and your clarity and your faith has been growing and becoming stronger. And you can also sense that you're on the cusp of birthing this incredible manifestation. But then on the other hand, you're still caught in this habitual, outdated way of being where you're thinking and feeling and experiencing life as this same old person that you feel like you've always been. And so that's where I want to meet you in today's conversation, on the brink of giving birth to that next version of yourself. And so, in my experience, this is a pretty tricky place to be because when you're becoming something new, the reality is that you've never actually been that thing before, right? And so, even though you can sense them and you can feel them, The truth is that you don't actually know what it's like to be them, if that makes sense. So, for example, maybe you're on the brink of coming out. And even though you feel more ready than you've ever been, for right now, up until the moment of coming out, you don't actually know what it's like to be the person who is out. Or maybe you don't know how to be the person who wears the clothes that they really want to wear. Or even more frustrating, maybe you have taken the steps and you've already gone through a sort of inner shift, but now you're playing a sort of waiting game where you're waiting on your life circumstances and your external reality, right? And it's kind of like it's playing catch up to this next version of you. And so that's kind of like feeling like you're dealing with a sort of historical karmic momentum that is just taking its sweet time to play itself out. Because I think that that's also a really common thing to experience. And it's like we go through these changes on the inside, but then on the outside, our external reality is still for the time being at least, it's still reflecting back to us this outdated version of life, which is associated with the previous version of ourselves. But regardless of what the specifics are, I'm just trying to zoom in on this feeling of being on the cusp. And it's like you're close, but not quite there. You can sense that change is happening and you feel the pressure and the anticipation growing, but there's still an essential piece of the creative vision that feels like it's stuck in the ethers, so to speak. And then because of that, you're of course dealing with the associated labor pains of being in such a high pressure situation. And so, quite naturally, you're mildly freaking out because you feel like you can no longer tolerate living on this side of the birthing process. So let's talk about this. What would a creative midwife say to a person who's experiencing this kind of a situation? Well, I think first and foremost, we need to relax, right? Not in the sense that we just kick back and say, well, it's just going to happen whenever it happens. And so we sort of relax or we pull out of the situation. No, so instead, I'm talking more like we relax into the situation and we lean into that inevitability of the birthing process. And so instead of pulling back and tensing because we're scared, we sort of energetically lean into the situation. And we give ourselves permission to fall even more deeply into this unfolding process. And if you notice, I'm saying that this is what we need to do. And that's because this is exactly what I'm going through right now. So I'm giving birth to a new life, and I'm using this conversation as a part of my cathartic creative process. Because that's also a really important part of giving birth, right? It's like we need an outlet or a way to physically discharge all of this pent up energy that we're experiencing. Otherwise, the pressure becomes too much for our bodies to handle. So, if you need to scream, then do that. And if you need to cry and dance and vomit or exercise, like whatever needs to happen so that you can physically assist this energy, just continue moving through you, I would suggest doing that. And I'm also reminding myself to do that. And I would also say, don't be afraid to really give yourself to this process because this is the evolution of your being, right? So this is life giving birth to itself or this next version of itself, which means that right now it's in your best interest to trust in your innate primal instincts and realize that this creative process, it's as old as time. Year after year, millennia after millennia, whatever that natural intelligence is, it's alive in you and it has been doing this work since day one. So, if you need something to trust in, I would trust in that. And I would relax into the recognition that this process of creative emergence, it's really as simple as allowing for nature to take its course. And if you want even more support throughout your creative process, then you should consider joining my brand new monthly group coaching program. So, this is an intimate, heart centered, community oriented container that is designed to compassionately facilitate your unique birthing process. I'll put a link in the description, and I cannot wait to see what you create. All right, my friend, that's all I've got. I'll see you in the next one.